Okay, so to start off today's Saturday casting analysis time, just wanted to talk through my thought process in thinking about how to defend a Protoss 2-base all-in. 2-base all-ins from Protoss have been a really classic approach to the matchup, and the fundamental reason that 2-base all-ins are very strong for Protoss and potentially weaker for Zerg in the matchup is because of the relationship between Chrono Boost on a Nexus making workers and a base producing drones with larvae. So at this beginning stage of the game, we see in the Units tab, Protoss is a couple workers ahead. They just Chrono Boost out their workers a little bit faster than Zerg can make their workers, one at a time. Zerg can pass Protoss in worker count once the bases are injected. So that's sort of the way that we can recover, and then as Zerg we can get 3-base saturation faster than Protoss can. But this window of an economy advantage is an opportunity for Protoss to either kind of survive into the 3-base stage or hit a really strong timing with this income advantage they've had for a pretty decent amount of time. So what is my opening like? I like opening low gas, high minerals, lots of queens and drones. I have 6 queens already at 5 minutes, and I have 41 drones. And I went for Overlord speed. What did I see with Overlord speed? I went Overlord speed after Ling speed. It's kind of an important note, I guess. So, Overlord speed, and I see this. I don't even really need to look closely to see what it is. This is a ton of stuff. It's 150 per gateway, and this is just 5 gateways right here. I already saw a gateway here, and there are 2 more gateways here. So there are a great number of gateways that are either completed or under construction. There's a robo here, which means a prism is a possibility. But basically, you're trying to hold fast and just survive. There's a piece of information that requires a little bit more of a close look. These gases are empty. This is one of the all-ins that is especially more viable now that the cost of charge was changed from 200 gas, 200 minerals to 100 gas, 100 minerals. So it's the same cost as resonating glaives. But the difference between Zealots and Adepts is Zealots don't require any gas. So Protoss doesn't need to have gas mining. In the Adept all-in version, usually they have some workers in the gas of the main, and they won't have gas at the natural. So my plan here is to go for melee Lings and a Roach Warren. One of the things I learned from Hearthstone and Panda Bear Me, people who are better than me, who talk about ZvP and were giving me some tips, they were saying if Zerg is up against a 2-base all-in, the Roach Warren is a bit more sturdy of an investment than Banelings are. Roaches are less exploitable to splitting. If someone's doing an Adept timing and they split their Adepts, your Banes can't really get good value. Similarly, Charged Zealots run pretty fast, and they can split their Zealots and get a decent trade for that value, and then push in. So what does it look like in my setup as this all-in is coming? I have 41 workers. That's not very many. If I was against a 3-base play, I would want to have closer to 50 or more right now. But I stopped making workers because I know there's a very, very committed timing that's moving in my general direction. So I'm just going to be making roaches until I run out of gas, and Lings once I have spent all my gas, and then queens once I've spent all my larvae. So that's sort of the order of spending. 2 spines here, it just makes a strong anchor for myself. This 3rd base location is low ground. It's probably the worst location for me to have to take a fight, so I'm compensating for that with these 2 spine crawlers. My creep spread is pretty nice, that's the benefit of having lots of queens. I do not have a lair. Lair doesn't really help me with anything right now. Mainly I just need to mass a bunch of units. And once I defend this, then I can drone 3-base saturation really quick. So I have my queens on a separate hotkey for my Ling Roach. Notice how I fell back to my anchor. I'm not trying to fight the Zealots as soon as they touch my creep. I'm falling back to the map objective that's important, which that's my drone count and my hatcheries. As long as those are defended, I can keep spamming units. And I can make units out of 3 hatches while the opponent is just making Zealots off of their shitwhacker gateways. So I'm kind of falling back to the spines. getting value from these. And then as I'm starting to whittle down the Zealot count, I can move my queens forward and have them attack this Prism. And now this stage of the all-in is over. But notice the worker count is fairly similar. I have 7 queens, 7 roaches, 14 lings, but the opponent has been sneaking in a few workers here and there, and now they're going to take their gases and transition into another timing. So for someone who's opening with a really aggressive strategy, typically you want to follow that up with either a very greedy risk or another aggressive move. So the next aggressive move the opponent's going to go for is tons of sentries, immortals, and some gateway units to supplement that. So I'm just trying to spread some vision, put overlords around the map. I'm droning up a bit. I have 58 workers now. Taking a macro hatcher so that I can make even more lings. If you get 3 base mineral saturation and Zergling is the main unit in your composition, which we can see here, 73 Zerglings, 6 roaches, 3 banes, 3 ravagers. Zergling is by far the most numerous unit that I have, so a macro hatch just allows me to keep spamming out those lings. What would you do if the Protoss decided to run up the ramp into your natural? They can't, because I have so many lings. Lings are super fast, and they're extra super fast on creep. So if the Zealots were here, and they tried to run up here into my natural, I just run right here to intercept them, this line, and they can't get in. And then my queens and roaches can do work to them. So that's the real benefit of creep, is you have tons of mobility, and even though lings are fairly weak as units, they're nice blockers, where you can prevent the opponent from going through areas. That's one of the limitations of Zealots as opposed to Adepts, is they can't shade through stuff. Adepts can shade through units, they cannot shade through buildings, but you can't really make a wall off with army the same way you can against Zealots. So this is what the second stage of this defense looks like. The opponent has 3 bases. The main base is kind of mining out. The natural's not super well saturated because they did a Bane drop. But now there are a ton of sentries, 4 immortals, a prism, and a bunch of stalkers and zealots. The main thing they've cut with this hyper-aggressive strategy is a forge and a mothership core. They don't have a mothership core for defense, but they do have lots of gateways to warp in units to defend if they need to. There's another 5th immortal on the way. So I went for Ravager Ling Bane. I did not take Roach Speed. Why did I not take Roach Speed? Because Roaches aren't really good units against Immortal Sentry. Ravagers are quite good, but Ling Bane is just a nice way to fight the Protoss in a fast capacity where I can spend my minerals, I can get some surrounds if they give me the opportunity, and the Ravagers can shoot from behind the force fields, break the force fields, kind of make sure that I don't get totally destroyed by the maneuvering and in-game map editor feature of the Sentry. So I have 105 lings, 59 drones, 11 queens. This was a bit of a gamble by me, trying to get some lings over there, but I am keeping units mostly alive for a while. And the most important thing when there are fights like this is you gotta produce units. So I'm making 26 lings. Lost a few queens, that's a bummer. But I sent 2 lings into this space. Didn't really kill too much. 1 zealot cleans it up. What a boss. What a boss. Go Ravagers, go. 1 corrosive bile will break a force field. If the Protoss has multiple force fields, you can hit kind of between the force fields right here and it would break both of them if there is overlap. So from the Protoss side of things, they want to have maximum efficiency with their force fields where they block off an area but don't have redundancy of force fields, because that's bad. You're spending, what, 100 energy, and Zerg can just break it with 1 bile cooldown. So force field micro is pretty difficult. And Ravager is a really nice counter to that. And that's basically how you defend the double barrel Zealot Prism into Immortal Sentry all in. Pretty straightforward. Okay.